Thank you.
So you made a documentary about white privilege.
I did, my own specifically.
Your own specific white privilege. And this was an idea you had post-2016 election.
Post-mortem, yes. In 2016, I don't know if you guys know, there was an election.
Yeah.
A pretty big one. I didn't like the way that went.
Yeah.
So I had a hard time with it. And, you know, before the election, like my biggest decision was whether I was going to build a slide that came out of my bedroom balcony for adults that went straight into my pool. That was like my biggest stressor. And then the day after the election, I was running around my neighborhood, passing out water bottles to Mexican workers, like, we love you, you're here, you belong here. They're like, we're legally here, so back off, bitch. So it was a confusing time.
Yes.
And I was very upset, and I dug deep, and I went to therapy for the first time.
Yeah.
The first real time in my life at the tender age of 42, I think. And I got real about my entitlement, about being spoiled, about what it's like to look outside of yourself, get your head out of your own ass, you know? And I started to look around and realize just how bad shape we were in and how little I knew about it, so I got educated.
And with white privilege, this was something that, is it safe to say you were a little just oblivious to before you had this sort of introspection?
Yeah, like I thought, oh, I'm super talented and I work really hard. That's why I'm successful. It's like, whoa, 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 whoa. When you start to read books, it's like a person of color wouldn't have had the career I've had, wouldn't have gotten away with the things I got away with. And I had no accountability for that. So for me, it was a deep dive into just understanding what it's like to be a person of color in this country, as good of an understanding as I can have, because obviously I can't understand. But I wanted to do something that wasn't about me collecting a paycheck. It was about communicating and just contributing something, you know, in a more thoughtful way. So I started with my own ridiculous privilege and lifestyle, which is, you know, absurd. So I learned a lot, and we have to really pay attention to people that are unlike us.
And I think, you know, I feel similar probably to you, which is, you know, you, as a white person, you succeed, and it felt very hard, you know, where you were in it and your perspective, and you just need to realize, like, oh, I'm not saying white privilege doesn't mean it was easy for you. It just means it can be so much harder for people that don't have that first step in the door.
Absolutely. It means that when I get pulled over by the cops, I don't have to worry about it being a life or death situation.
Which is a huge difference.
Exactly. So,
you mentioned one of the things you talk about is shoplifting, how that is something you did, which then becomes like a slap on the wrist as opposed to what it could be for someone else.
Yeah, I mean, my ex-boyfriend's in the documentary. He's a black man named Tyshawn I dated when I was 16. And I know everybody knows that I've dated 50 Cent. And my friend said, oh, great, now people are going to think you only like black guys and you discriminate against your own race. So I would like to say that I'm available to white men, too.
That's very nice of you to say.
Okay? I want to clear that I don't discriminate against white men.
Very sweet of you.
Even though, you know, you guys know what you did. Wait, what was the question?
Shoplifting.
Shoplifting. Well, he and I got caught, with 3 dime bags. When we were 16, he was 18. Every time they let me go, and every time he got arrested. And he ended up spending 14 years in jail. And I never thought about that at the time. My director of this documentary made me go back there and revisit that. I was like, no more ex-boyfriends. Like, I've met up with a couple and it doesn't go well. So I wasn't that into it, but it was important. And, you know, there are examples. I mean, I've walked into an airport. You know how annoying an airport can be and the slowness of a transaction with the person behind the counter or at a Hudson bookseller. I mean, I've definitely walked in, looked at her and looked at the slowness of the transaction of what it was going to take, taken a book and just waved $20 up at the camera, the security camera, and be like, yeah, I'm taking this and I'm leaving. I can't deal with the slowness of this. And when I was talking to her about that, I go, is that white privilege? She's like, no, white people aren't even doing that.
Yeah.
She's like, you just have problems.
Don't pin that on our race.
Right.
That is very specifically a Chelsea thing.
I was like, yeah, it turns out it is very specifically a Chelsea thing. A lot of my issues are very, you know, centered around my own experience.
You were arrested when you were 21. What was that for?
I got a DUI, but my sister, who's in my dressing room, my mother had given me her ID, like as a mother does, so that I could drink earlier than I was legally able to.
Good parenting, yeah.
My mom was just like, whatever you need to get the hell out of this house. Like, if you need a fake ID, take it. Anyway, I got pulled over, And I forgot that I was 21 at that point because it had only been a week. And I gave them my sister's ID, and apparently my sister had reported me to like the FBI or something. So I had to spend.
For stealing your ID?
She was Mormon at the time,
Oh,
so
gotcha,
she was
yeah.
really just like out to
Yeah,
get
they
me.
call the
'cause,
FBI left and right,
You
yeah.
know how Mormons are. It's
Yeah,
like
that's speed dial, yeah.
it's like they're in bed with the FBI, basically. So I ended up spending like 48 hours in LA County Women's Prison. And then I had to go to this class where you had to get up and tell your DUI. You had to go to DUI school, which is basically a school you go to for like 8 to 10 weeks where they teach you how to get out of your next DUI.
Okay, yeah.
They're basically like, don't ever admit. I'm like, what kind of class is this? But when I got up to finally tell my story about my
Were you nervous about
experience-
telling your story?
Yeah, I had diarrhea.
Yeah.
I had diarrhea. Every time I went to that class, the fear of getting called on, I had
Yeah.
diarrhea. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
public speaking was the scariest thing you could imagine. And I was like, there's no way I can do this. I can't talk publicly. But when I did get up, I couldn't get back down. I couldn't stop talking because the audience was like with me and they were listening to me. And my story was ridiculous. I called the cop a racist. He was white. I mean, none of it made sense. And when I got off, somebody's like, you should do stand-up comedy now. I was like, yeah, that actually makes sense. Me talking and no one being able to interrupt. So that's kind of how I got into stand-up.
So I guess what you're saying to any young potential stand-ups out there is get that first DUI,
That's
get in
right.
front of people,
That's right.
you know, work it
So-
out in front of an audience.
Yeah, and if you can steal somene's ID, go for that too. Why not?
Congratulations on the documentary. It's always so great to see you.
Thank you.
Give it up for Chelsea Handler, everybody.